Good evening, Dr. Hunter.
Good evening.
Thank you for agreeing to do this interview tonight.
It's a pleasure.
Before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you were born and a little background about how you got into medicine and surgery?
That's a very good question. I was born in Glasgow, Scotland, and as a young boy, I was never into school and I didn't want to do school, so I had no formal education. So I kind of just went with my brother because he decided to set up a medical school. So I attended there, and that's where I got all my medical experience.
Where was the medical school?
In England, London, England.
So your brother started it, formed the school himself.
Yes.
Very interesting. So then you had medical training there at the school in England, and is that where you began doing surgery?
That is exactly where I began doing surgery. I started dissecting on animals, and we later moved on to humans.
Wow.
Yes.
That's fascinating. You probably had some pretty interesting experiences doing that. Was there one that was particularly stands out in your mind?
Well, probably the popliteal aneurysm I had to tie off was no one had ever done it before, and people have tried and experimented with it, but I decided I would give it a shot. And when I did, I was actually the first person to ever achieve it. Every other time, the person would either die or bleed out.
So can you tell me, not knowing anything about medicine or surgery, what is a popliteal aneurysm?
It's where the blood clots in a artery, and what I had to do was divert the blood so it would go into other veins and find another route to the other end of the artery.
Wow, that's very impressive. Let's see, I've also heard that you have a pretty interesting, impressive collection as well. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, over my life, I've collected many things, and I collected so many things, they decided to turn my house into a museum. It holds the biggest collection of deformities. I actually have something here. This is a bone.
Wow, tell us about that.
It's a bone that I found.
Uh-huh. And so what kind of deformities?
So I'm really interested in a bunch of mutations in animals.
Uh-huh.
I love to look at evolution and how it all started. So I imported lots of live animals into my house so I could study them, and I also dissected a bunch of animals over my life. So I have a big array of collections.
Wow, that's interesting. So how long have you been doing this, Dr. Hunter?
I've been doing surgery and dabbling in medicine my whole life. Ever since I was a young boy, as I said earlier, I rejected all former education and instead went and dissected animals around the farm.
So you're pretty much self-taught then for the beginning part of your career, you'd say?
Yes.
Well, that's very interesting. So when do you think you'll retire?
I don't see myself retiring in my life. I see it more as a life commitment more than a job.
Wow. That's very fascinating. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to today? Tell us anything else about any of your other surgeries or?
Well, some of my other more famous experiments that I've done, I actually proved this theory that syphilis and gonorrhea came from the same disease. So I actually injected myself with it to see the results. And when I injected myself with the gonorrhea, it did later form into syphilis. So.
Oh my goodness. Were you able to treat that?
No. I just kind of had it.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, there you go. A pioneer in medicine, to be sure. So I just want to thank you, Dr. Hunter, and of course wish you well on all of your future endeavors in medicine and medical science. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.